Fears rise as the U.S. consulate in Shanghai allows some employees to leave China. Shanghai announces a plan to ease its citywide shutdown, but an official notice asks people to stay inside for now. Will a U.S. push for green energy really counter oil crisis? That approach may not be quite so clear-cut, with China still firmly involved. Beijing makes a rare move, delivering missiles to a Russia ally. That nation is now primed to become the first country in Europe to operate Chinese missiles. And for those watching our full episode, parts of Shanghai erupt into protests amid strict lockdown orders. Residents complain they don't have enough to eat, with some saying they're starving to death. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. The pandemic outbreak in China is still going on. An update from the U.S. Embassy in Shanghai. The facility had given the go-ahead for non-emergency employees and their families to leave China on a voluntary basis. That's according to a statement released on Saturday. The notice takes the current surge of COVID-19 cases in Shanghai into account, plus the impact of restrictions imposed by Chinese authorities. Also, a pop-up on the website shows a Level 3 travel advisory, urging American citizens to reconsider travel to China due to, quote, arbitrary enforcement of local laws and COVID-19 related restrictions. On top of that, the advisory specifies the risk of parents getting separated from their children under a local virus prevention policy. According to Reuters, a U.S. consulate employee wrote a plea on China's popular social platform WeChat last Tuesday. He asked staff to spare food for local troops, saying Marines have depleted their food and can no longer get delivery. They only had vacuum-sealed rations left. A Marines official responded later, saying the troops are fine and aren't short on food. Shanghai revised plans to ease lockdown orders in some areas starting Monday. Right now, 26 million people are trapped at home. Under the new plan to ease lockdown measures, 11 million residents will remain trapped at home, while the other 15 million can leave their homes but are still confined to their neighborhoods or districts. As a step towards the partial easing, Shanghai is grouping residential units into 3 categories, measuring their level of infection risk. According to the official policy, they will allow appropriate activity for those in neighborhoods where no positive cases have been reported for 2 weeks. But more than 40% of the city's neighborhoods will have to stay at home under strict lockdown orders, as before. Pressure from residents has been mounting. People are getting increasingly frustrated as the curbs drag on, leaving many to struggle with finding enough food and medicine. Residents are also sharing stories online, describing how some have died of other illnesses or conditions because they couldn't provide negative virus test results in time, and hospitals refuse to treat them. Despite those impacts, questions are still circulating about how much Shanghai authorities will ease the lockdown. Shanghai carried out another round of mass COVID-19 testing just last Saturday and tested residents at least twice in one day. And on Sunday, the head of the epidemic response group from China's National Health Commission commented, saying daily infection rates are still high in the city and that residents should take it seriously. The Biden administration says electric vehicles and renewable energy are the future. But Biden acknowledges one problem. Right now, China dominates the green energy market. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are now trying to pave a way to produce clean energy products back home in the U.S. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has the details.
Rising gas prices have left an opening for the Biden administration to push for a swifter transition to green energy. However, right now, China has cornered the market.
However, with China's dominance over the critical minerals required for the EVs, I have grave concerns about moving too quickly towards an EV-only future. China is responsible for 80% of the world's battery material processing.
Lawmakers have raised concerns about China's human rights record. The Chinese Communist Party uses forced labor. There's also a national security issue. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are now trying to find ways to ramp up production in America. Senators Manchin and Risch on Friday introduced a bill to promote American nuclear energy without relying on China and Russia. These two countries currently dominate the international nuclear energy market. And Senators Marco Rubio and Cindy Hyde-Smith introduced a bill to develop rare earth manufacturing centers in the U.S.
As we've noted, we don't have many of those critical manufacturing industries today. They exist entirely in Asia.
To support more U.S. production, Manchin calls on environmental groups to get on board and stop filing lawsuits, which can block a new mine from operating for up to 10 years. But extracting minerals are only one piece of the puzzle.
Right now, one of the deficits in the critical mineral space is that no matter where those minerals are extracted, much of that goes to China for processing. And so the more that we reshore processing, the more we can sustainably provide manufacturers here a base for their critical mineral needs.
He lists a number of companies that are working towards processing minerals. President Biden's goal is to make half of all U.S. vehicles electric by 2030. But how long would it take to get there? Experts in the industry have varying responses.
It's almost impossible to get there, not just in terms of the United States providing those, but globally.
Our effort is to develop a circular economy for electric vehicles and electric vehicle batteries by the 2040, 2050 timeframe.
We see a pathway where we can domestically source all these key critical minerals for millions and millions of EVs a year in just a few years.
And many in the clean energy field have said that President Biden has taken a crucial step toward producing green energy products here at home by invoking the Defense Production Act. But some critics are skeptical that this action will have the intended effect. So we'll see in the time ahead if President Biden's latest action here does make a splash in the green energy market. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
According to research service Bloomberg NEF, 46% of the electric vehicles have been sold in China so far. Europe took 34% and North America only 15%. Globally, 20 million electric vehicles are on the road. That's 20 times the number from 6 years ago. Over to the UK, nuclear is slated to produce a quarter of the UK's electricity by 2050, with Prime Minister Boris Johnson announcing plans to build up to 8 nuclear power stations. There's also a push for offshore wind and solar power. It comes amid an increase in household energy bills and concerns over reliance on Russian oil and gas. NTD's Jane Worrell brings us this report.
Ahead of launching his full energy strategy, Boris Johnson said he'll bring nuclear home.
We first split the atom in the UK. We had the first civilian nuclear power plant. We're bringing nuclear home with one nuclear plant and one nuclear reactor every year for 8 years rather than one a decade.
Under his government's new energy security strategy, up to 8 nuclear reactors could be built across the country by 2030. The government set up a new body called Great British Nuclear to increase Britain's nuclear capacity. The strategy also outlines plans to support production of oil and gas in the North Sea, rather than importing it from places like Russia. And there's a big emphasis on renewables as the government tries to meet its net zero ambitions. There's plans to increase offshore wind, and for onshore wind, a consultation with a limited number of supportive communities in England who wish to host them in return for lower energy bills. There are also targets to increase solar and hydrogen power. The government says the strategy won't have an immediate effect, though, on rising energy bills.
It brings a measure of energy independence, security of supply to the UK. But you're quite right to say that a strategy takes maybe 3, 4, 5 years, more years, really to land.
This strategy does come amid a rise in the cost of living, and as Britain looks to reduce its reliance on Russian oil and gas. Earlier, Boris Johnson said that this new strategy will prevent Britain from being subject to blackmail from people like President Vladimir Putin. But we know from media reports that China General Nuclear has stakes in 3 British nuclear projects, and the French company EDF is behind 6 of them. Boris Johnson challenged on this point earlier. But it's understood that ministers do want to find ways to prevent China General Nuclear from being part of this project over concerns of the Chinese regime's involvement in critical infrastructure. Jane Worrell, NTD News, London.
Concerns are growing about the planned Chinese takeover of one of the UK's biggest microchip factories. A leading government committee of the UK has accused the Prime Minister of doing nothing after promising a national security review of the Chinese purchase of the British company. Boris Johnson said he had instructed his national security advisor to review the sale of Newport wafer fab back in July last year. It came after the local government said the company had been bought by Chinese company Nexperia. But committee chair Tom Tugendhat says the review has not taken place. The semiconductor company is the UK's largest microchip wafer fabricator, receiving significant investment from the local and national governments. A Foreign Affairs Committee report says the government has recognized semiconductors are critical to the UK's national security, and that Nexperia is owned by a Shanghai company backed by the Chinese Communist Party. An unusual operation over the weekend. China delivered an anti-aircraft system to one of Russia's allies Saturday, Serbia. Beijing confirmed the delivery on Monday, describing it as regular military supplies and insisting that it has nothing to do with the current situation.
China recently dispatched an Air Force transport aircraft to deliver regular military supplies to Serbia.
6 Chinese Air Force cargo planes carried the advanced anti-aircraft system to Serbia. The planes passed over at least 2 NATO member states in the process, Turkey and Bulgaria. Experts regarded the move as a sign of China's expanding global influence. It also marks the Chinese Air Force's largest overseas delivery to date. At the same time, Western countries are voicing concerns that weapons buildup in the Balkans could threaten the fragile peace in the region, especially during the war in Ukraine. The Chinese missile system delivered to Serbia is comparable to the American Patriot system and the Russian S-300 surface-to-air missile system, though it has a shorter range than the S-300. Serbia will be the first nation in Europe to operate Chinese missiles. A Swedish delegation arrived in Taiwan on Sunday. It includes 8 members of parliament and is scheduled to meet with Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen Tuesday morning. The Swedish politicians will also visit Foreign Minister Joseph Wu and other Taiwan officials. They are set to leave on Thursday. Taiwan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs posted to its official Facebook page on Sunday, revealing that a certain country sent a threatening letter to Sweden before the visit. The letter reiterated a one-country policy and called the delegation's visit a serious violation of Sweden's foreign policy, as well as a breach of political commitment to the country. The Post added that the letter did nothing to deter the visit, serving only to strengthen the delegation's resolve. Hong Kong's former top security official is seeking to replace Carrie Lam in the upcoming election. John Lee oversaw the suppression of the city's 2019 pro-democracy protests.
Hong Kong's former number 2 official on Saturday announced his decision to run for chief executive of the global financial hub. John Lee resigned last week as the city's chief secretary in order to participate in the May election. That's after current leader Carrie Lam said she would not seek a second term. In his announcement, Lee said that he's planning a new chapter for Hong Kong. He was the deputy commissioner of police during Hong Kong's 2019 pro-democracy protests, which were met with a violent clampdown by authorities. He's the first person to announce a bid for Hong Kong's top post since the nomination period opened over the weekend. The 64-year-old was promoted to Hong Kong's second most senior post last year. Some political analysts commented on the move, saying Beijing's priorities for Hong Kong were related to security rather than the economy. City leaders are selected every 5 years by a pro-Beijing election committee and later approved by Beijing. So whoever becomes the next leader is expected to comply with Beijing's instructions.
That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program on YouTube. That's after being demonetized for a year. Full episodes can be watched on our partner platform, Epoch TV. To sign up for a 14-day free trial, please click the link down below. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer, and see you tomorrow.
Every once in a while, something comes along so masterful, it leaves you in awe. So inspiring, it changes your life. So beautiful, you wish it would never end. When that happens, it's something not to be missed. Shen Yun, an all-new production every year.
The performance was enchanting.
I feel better about the world. I feel uplifted.
It touches you. It really does.
The expertise of the dancers was really, really strong.
To know that it was live music was really fantastic.
We didn't want to miss this.
Make sure you see it.
Have to come. Life-changing.